Hey guys, it's Kate. Welcome back to my channel. So I've been thinking. So trying to cut straight to the chase here. Y'all know it's been a while. Just life and circumstances. So without going any further into that rabbit hole, this video is very different than the ones I normally do. And I know that's very cliche. Lots of YouTubers say that. But what I mean is I don't do current events usually. It just doesn't fit into what I tried to talk about on my channel. However, today, it's necessary. The reason why I am wanting to speak up about this is there have been several things that have come up due to current events with George Floyd's death. Today is the 31st of May, 2020, so as anyone who's been following the world news knows that this horrendously awful event has just occurred. And it also in part is kind of sparked by everything that was happening with COVID as well. And I had wanted to make a video during COVID kind of talking about some of this, but it didn't feel right. Now I know why. There was a lot more I think that needed to be covered, and I'm all about believing in the right moment for certain videos, so here we go with this. So I really wanted to speak up during COVID as a starter for this video because of the fact that there was so much racism that was going on during COVID, and that's why this is tying into everything with current events with George Floyd. During COVID, obviously anybody who was paying attention knows that anyone who was Asian was being treated like they had the plague, or more importantly, that they carried COVID. And the reason why this was such a problem is that it went beyond the basic fear and ignorance and crap. It was becoming dangerous for anyone who was Asian. I have a friend who, he himself is white, but his fiance is Japanese. They live in Columbus, Ohio. And she was being verbally attacked and followed down the streets of Columbus by someone who was white just because she was Asian looking. Obviously, Japanese and Chinese people look very different, but anyone who is unfortunately ignorant to different facial structures of different ethnicities isn't going to pay attention to that. And she's okay, but it was a very scary moment for them. And I have several other friends who are Asian. When I lived in Portland, there's a lot of people who are Asian. Some of my closest friends and family who have become family through the years are Asian. So it was really scary for me to realize that these people might be in danger. And they were all okay, but it made me really uncomfortable, beyond just the whole, like, oh, hearing about it. Like, these are these are people who are very close to me, and being far away from them made me really nervous. And here in Utah, there is not as big of an Asian population, so I feel like it wasn't as prevalent here, at least not on the surface. So hearing about it from my friends and family who lived in other parts of the country was pretty sucky. But the reason why this ties into George Floyd is that back then I wanted to show solidarity. I wanted to be like, I'm with you, like, I would protect you if I was with you. And I started realizing recently why this is kind of weird for white people to do. And before I go into that, let me give another background into why these whole events kind of convalesced into this video. So one of my closest friends is black. She lives here in Utah. She originally grew up in Chicago. She grew up outside of Chicago in the suburbs. And when she found out about George Floyd, she called me, and she was really messed up about it. Pretty much anybody who heard about it was messed up about it. Well, she watched the video, and I try really hard not to get emotional because she was so upset. I honestly, on purpose, did not watch that video because I was so stunned that somebody recorded this and that this happened where people are watching someone die on camera. I could not do that. I could not watch that, but she did. I don't know if she didn't realize it was gonna be the actual video of him dying, or it just was like a compulsion from feeling a need to understand. I'm still not quite sure. But when she called me about it, she called me specifically because Utah is a very white area, and I think she wanted to talk to someone who would understand. For anyone who doesn't know why this is important, that a black person would call a white person to talk about George Floyd. I grew up all over the country. I lived with people who were black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian. I've been around all parts of the normal spectrum of color, I guess you could say, and immersed in their cultures. So I tend to understand probably a little bit more than your average white person. So, and she knows this about me, and that's something that we share, that she feels she can talk to me about this. Obviously, she knows I'm white. She knows that I'm not black, that I can't like actually get it on that really deep level, but that I get pretty close. So she called me because she had watched it and she was really messed up about it, understandably so. And it wasn't just the horror of watching someone die on screen through unbelievable police brutality. It was the fact that she has been very lucky in some ways, that because she grew up not on the streets of Chicago, she actually feels a lot of times that she kind of lived through what she calls whitewashing. And she doesn't mean that in like a rude way, but more like because she wasn't only around the black community without any outside influences, that she got shown very early on that there was, I guess a way to word it is like more to life, that there could be other things for her. She was introduced to more opportunities because she had a lot more white friends, and so she's never forgotten her black roots, but she definitely feels a lot of times that she was given a lot more opportunities because she was in a more white world. And she felt, from what she was explaining to me, just really weird about this, because there was a part of her that I think was super relieved she's never had to live through that kind of fear that comes with being in areas that are so prevalent with such horrendous racism, but also like kind of like sad and uncomfortable, realizing that it was partly because of her privilege as someone who is black who has gotten away from the majority of that issue. And when I was first hearing her talk about this, I'll be honest with you, the only thing I could think of was, I'm just grateful you don't have to. I'm grateful I don't have to be scared that something happens to you. And, you know, I listened and I tried to be there for her, and she was okay. She's still dealing with it, as I'm sure pretty much anyone of color is going to be dealing with this for a while, because it's like something straight out of the freaking ages of just, I know I'm not using proper words right now, but just, I have just all this history of all of the crap that has happened to people of color going through my brain, and it's just like history just won't stop repeating itself. We may not have laws allowing slavery and all this other bullshit anymore, but the way most people act, you would think we still do. It's just bullshit, and I hate it so much. Sorry, I'm probably going to get pretty pissed on this video because I am so close to so many people who are of color, and it just pisses me off that they feel guilty for not having to be exposed to that, and that they then feel so helplessly angry that people who can't or are not able to get out of that situation yet are still having to deal with it. And you know, I've always been really proud of the fact that, you know, as someone who is white, I don't see color. And I know a lot of black people, a lot of people of color hate when white people say that. The reason why I say that is that when I look at someone, I'm not blind. I can see that you're a different shade than myself. I can see there is melanin and pigment to your skin. However, I don't view you and decide I'm going to treat you differently because of it. Usually, if I see someone's a different color, I will ask where they're from, as in, like, if I can tell that you are Asian, what country is your family's heritage from? You know, if you're black, cool, you know, what part of the United States are you from? Not, you know, are you from Africa? I don't do that. And because of what I do for a living, and I'm literally touching people, like I'm touching their skin, you know, it's a little hard to feel like someone's skin color matters to me when underneath muscle is muscle, fascia is fascia, bone is bone. And so, moving on from that, as I'm listening to her story, I was always just very much like, I'm so proud that I can be here, and I can, you know, be that white person that maybe might understand a little bit. And it always frustrated me whenever I would hear stories about how the black community, and I apologize if I'm wrong in saying this, but it seems like I've heard it a lot from the black community, that they especially get very frustrated whenever it seems that white people try to rescue them. There's always like a white person trying to rescue someone who is of color. And at first I was really frustrated because I was like, why would you be mad that someone's on your side? Like, why would this bother you that someone will stand up for you? Then I found out. So literally maybe a day or two after George Floyd's death, there was an article that I read through a forum and it was talking about, and I don't know what part of the United States this was from, so don't quote me on this, but there was a black man who he had gone to get some gas for his wife, filled up her car for her, and while he is at the gas station, there is a white woman in her car at the pump next to him, and she's just glaring at him, and he's just, kind of doing this whole, like, okay, I'm just trying to get gas, like, I don't know why you're glaring at me, just trying to mind his own business, get his gas, move on. Well, all of a sudden she pulls out her phone and drives away, and he's like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna finish getting my gas and leave. Next thing he knows, he's surrounded by cop cars, and they are trying to arrest him because there was a robbery down the road from where this gas station was that the only description that they had was that the person who robbed the store was black. Not specifically anything about his personal physical features. Nothing that he actually fit other than his skin color. And he is being handcuffed, desperately trying to tell them, I did not do this, I have a family. His children's car seats are in the car. His children were not with him, but they wouldn't listen to anything he said in defense of himself until this older white gentleman who was, I don't know if he had been in the convenience store or at one of the other pumps, walks up and says, this man did not do this. He drove from another direction. He was not in the area. And then they let him go. And this article was written by the man's wife talking about the things that they've gone through, and that, he's a good man, and that he's always tried to be a good man, but that this thing changed them, and that her husband felt so defeated that he was just wanting to be seen as a man, just as a person, not based off of his color, and he was not seen as such until a white person stepped in and saved him. And I will be really honest with you, until I had read this and saw it through the perspective of someone's eyes who is black, who is just as good of a person and just as much a member of society as myself or anyone else, was not treated as such until a person who was not of color stepped up and said they didn't do this, even though he tried repeatedly himself to give them that same information. Suddenly, I got it. I got it in a way I don't think I ever could have gotten it before. And it broke my heart because I feel like we live in a shit world right now that if you are of color, no matter where you live, even if you're in a technically safe place, like a safe area, like a more liberal area, an area that's not supposed to be overrun with racism, you may still get it. You may still have some asshole who has decided to mark you because of the color of your skin. And mind you, my mother's side of the family is Jewish. We immigrated here from Poland only a generation ago. So I'm only second generation born here. So my family, a very big part of my mother's family, died in the Holocaust, which means that being Jewish, we get it. We also were persecuted because of that. And for a long time that was, I never say that to people because I'm not trying to compare apples to apples. Who gives a shit? I have been fortunate enough where no one's gonna look at me and be like, oh, you're Jewish, I'm gonna decide to discriminate against you. And I'm Jewish by culture, not by religion. But this is different. This is way, way different because being Jewish, you're still white. You're still white. You still are able to hide to a certain degree. And yes, there are some markers of being a Jew in facial structures and the Jew hair, the really curly, poofy hair for guys. But we're still white. And I don't think that's really hit me until now, until I have someone who I love dearly, who is my best friend, who feels guilty for being safe. And I have people who I consider my parents who are Asian, who have to hide in their homes because they might be persecuted. And how I have a friend who is now scared for his fiance's safety, for her to walk alone in an area that they should not be judged. She's a PhD student. My Asian parents, they're so incredibly smart and well off, and my friend who is black, who lives here, she is so smart and so talented and so just full of potential to change the world, and yet people still view someone by the color of their skin. And everyone is so angry. You know, the riots that are happening, Utah got sent out that whole emergency, what was it called? Not the shutdown, curfew. So did Oregon. And I was in shock. And that was the moment where I was like, holy shit, are we like in the 70s again where like riots are happening and everything? And people are so freaking angry. They're so freaking angry. They're so sick of the shit. They're so sick of the same things happening generation after generation after generation. And I said to someone a couple of weeks ago who I was in a very uncomfortable position because I had them on my table and they said some things that were not okay. And in those positions, I can't say anything because they are on my table and I'm stuck touching them, and it's really uncomfortable when that happens. But I said something to them once about how maybe someday the world can learn how to get along. That maybe overly, you know, optimistic and naive and idealistic, but maybe, just maybe, the world will learn how to get along and stop trying so hard to outdo each other and to prove something. And her response was, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. The world doesn't work that way. It's never going to happen. And I'm like, this is exactly why nothing has changed, is that people have just decided that this is the way the world is going to work, no matter what, no matter how sick everyone is of it, no matter how exhausting and dangerous and just repetitious it's become. Generations cannot... We talk about generational things all the time, and the problem is it's not even generational anymore. It's still happening. It's still current. Current events are still influencing the way the future is going to unfold and are echoing the past. And I don't know why. I wish I did, because I have so many people who are just gorgeous, who beautiful on the inside and outside, who are of color, and why would you choose that as a reason to not like someone? There are so many other reasons to not like someone. Like, Jesus Christ, excuse my French, but like, wow. There are so many other reasons to not like someone other than the color of their skin. One of the very few things you cannot change about yourself. It's like someone hating me for being tall, which, by the way, I have had people make comments about that, and I'm like, I physically cannot change my height. What do you want me to do? So it's like, it's the same shit. Like, why is that the thing that you choose to not like someone over? And I don't understand it. And of course, everyone, because they're so angry, they're wanting to fight back. They're wanting to, you know, not actually, but, you know, in spirit, join the riots. And you know, maybe if we scream a little louder, they'll finally listen. And it's like, it's not gonna work. It's not how the world works, unfortunately. You can yell as loud as you want. But, you know, I made a video about this a long time ago, talking about the status quo bias. And the reality is that it doesn't matter what you present to someone, even if what you're presenting to them works better and makes more sense for the situation. If they have decided they are not ready for it, they will cling to their own bias of what is going to work for them, even though it's not anymore. It doesn't matter what you say. I mean, it's literally history in a nutshell right there. And so, as I was hearing about all this, and, you know, I had another friend who was really pissed off about some other things race-wise that have been happening, I started thinking, you know, people always discount the importance of love and solidarity and peace, and it makes me laugh, because this is why I'm like, are we living in the 70s? Because there's everyone who's just so geared up and so angry and ready for, maybe not actual war, but war in every other way. And then there's those who like, just guys, like, stop, like, just breathe and think and be love. And I'm like, wow, we've got the hippies and we've got everybody else going on. Again, history is repeating itself. And that being said, what I would really like to end this video on, I know I got a little ranty there, but this has been awful to live through and watch and experience, both for myself and people that I love who are personally being affected by this because of their color of their skin right now. I saw this today. There was a quote someone had posted that was by Martin Luther King Jr., wonderful man, I feel like his words are probably going to come up a lot more recently. And what it says, let me grab it really quick, it says, returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. And obviously, as poetic as that sounds, what I took from that was that if you add into all the crap, if you feed into the anger and the hatred and, start picking and choosing sides and firing back at all the other groups who are just being bigoted and ignorant and racist and stupid, we're just keeping it going. Whether it is white people and black people and Asian people and anybody, like at this point, all of us have got to wake up and stop doing the them versus us bullshit, even within our own communities. And start realizing that the only way this stuff is gonna stop, and I mean for real stop, like in my generation's lifetime stop, is if we realize that choosing to treat someone differently because of the color of their skin is bullshit, and something that maybe should be done as a side effect of George Floyd's death, especially. Because it's been obvious for a long time that there has been a lot of cops who have been able to become police officers who are so obviously racist and bigoted. There has got to be some kind of screening that can be done, psychological screening, because something I've noticed about racism and bigotry is that it pops up really easily. It's like one thing for some reason they're like incapable of hiding. Like it's really almost uncomfortable to watch. Like they, either because they don't think it's a problem or because they don't give two shits. It comes up really fast. I think that maybe something that should be implemented to all of the police academies is a screening to find out ahead of time if someone has any racist or bigoted tendencies, and you would know immediately, and have them banned from joining those industries, because we need people who are safe. We need people who are not going to judge someone off the damn color of their skin, who aren't going to profile someone because of the color of their skin. Profile someone by if they're an asshole or not, if they've done something illegal, not because of their background. Enough of the profiling for those reasons alone. We need a new system because the one we have isn't working. We have been talking forever at this point about ways to fix everything, and no one's doing anything. So how about for once, number one, stop adding to the hate. Listen to MLK. There's a reason why he was so powerful during his time. Listen to what he has to say. Do not add to the hate. Fight hate with love. Number two, implement new policies on the ways that people are allowed to join these industries and give them proper screenings, because I guarantee you there's some psychological exam that can be done ahead of time to determine if you can join or not. And thirdly, whose ever side you're on, if it's a good one, as in if you're white and you want to be on the side of your people who are colored, or if you are colored and you're trying to support all of your people who are of that same race, just remember that it doesn't matter who is trying to be there for you. Let them be there for you. And us as white people, if this is really what this has come down to, that everyone keeps saying, white people, you need to speak up, you need to do something. Well, goddamn it, I'm standing up, I'm saying something. We have got to find a way to rehumanize everybody who is of color in the eyes of everybody else who's chosen that they're not. We know they're human. We know that they are people, regardless of the color of their skin. So somehow, some way, goddamn it, we have to re-establish that in our society and knock off. I know it's a very understated way of putting this, but knock off the bullshit. So, sorry guys, I know I got really heated on that. This has been very near and dear to my heart, and I felt it was time that I try to add something. I hope that you guys learned something from this, felt something from this that was good and powerful. If you guys have anything that you have personally experienced that you want to talk about, please do so in the comments down below. If you like what you saw here, please give it a thumbs up. Even if it's just to share with people. Like you guys, anybody who's watching my videos knows my videos are not monetized. I'm not big enough for that. I'm just making this to try and get this out to people. And as always, I was gonna say subscribe, but you know what? Fuck it. If you don't want to subscribe and you just watch this, thank you. Like, let's get this out there. Let's do this. Let's change this. Let's be better. And hopefully create a better world. I know it sounds so cliche and so cheesy at this point, but that's my hope. So I love you guys. I hope that you have a better weekend and a better week, and I'll see you guys next time.